A 6-year-old girl in a pink jacket walks up to a billionaire's table, grabs his $1,000 coffee, and pours it onto the marble floor. Security rushes forward, but she whispers through tears, "Please don't drink it. They put something bad inside." Welcome to Stories by Jason. If you're settled in and ready for a good story, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I've got another exciting story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for the love and support. You're truly appreciated, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me. Jonathan Pierce didn't believe in chaos. Every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m., he walked through the brass doors of Belmont Cafe, nodded to the same barista, and collected the same drink. A single-origin Ethiopian pour-over, black, served at precisely 185 degrees in a handmade ceramic cup. He sat at the corner table beneath the crystal chandelier, reviewed contracts on his tablet, and allowed himself exactly 30 minutes before his driver arrived. Control was currency, predictability was power. This morning started no differently. December rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows as Jonathan settled into his leather chair, the weight of a $4.2 billion development deal resting comfortably on his shoulders. The Riverside Project, 42 acres of prime waterfront real estate, would reshape the city's skyline and secure his legacy as the most influential developer in the state's history. Tonight's city council vote was a formality. Everything was arranged. He lifted the coffee to his lips. "Please don't." The voice was so small he almost missed it. Jonathan looked up to see a child standing beside his table. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, wearing a pink jacket 3 sizes too large, duct tape holding the sole of her left sneaker together. Her dark hair hung in tangled strands around a face smudged with dirt. In her trembling hands, she clutched a plastic water bottle filled with bottle caps, the kind children collected from the street. "Excuse me." Jonathan's tone carried the ice of a man unaccustomed to interruptions. The girl's eyes, wide and desperately afraid, locked onto the coffee cup. "Please don't drink it." Before Jonathan could respond, before he could even process the absurdity of the moment, the child lunged forward and grabbed the cup from his hand. Hot coffee splashed across his $1,000 suit as she poured the entire contents onto the white marble floor. The cafe went silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. A woman gasped. The barista dropped a glass pitcher that shattered behind the counter. "What the?" Jonathan shot to his feet, coffee dripping from his sleeves. The little girl stumbled backward, the empty cup falling from her hands. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, I had to. They put something bad inside." 2 security guards materialized from the corners of the cafe, moving swiftly toward the commotion. The manager rushed over, his face pale with horror. "Mr. Pierce, I am so sorry," the manager began. "Don't touch her," Jonathan heard himself say, surprising even himself. Something in the child's eyes stopped him cold. This wasn't mischief. This wasn't a prank or a desperate bid for money. This was terror. The girl was shaking so violently her bottle caps rattled. "Your coffee," she managed between sobs. "The man put something in it. The one with the black gloves. I saw him. And I tried to tell someone, but nobody listens, and my mama drank the bad water and she didn't wake up, and I can't let it happen again. I can't." Her words tumbled out in a frantic rush, barely coherent. "What man?" Jonathan crouched down, ignoring the coffee staining his knees. "What are you talking about?" But the girl was beyond explanation. She pressed herself against the wall, eyes darting toward the exit like a cornered animal. The manager's hand gripped her shoulder. "Come on, sweetie, let's call someone too." "Wait," Jonathan's voice cut like a blade. "Just wait." He studied the child more carefully. Her jacket had a name written in faded marker on the inside collar, visible where it hung loose around her neck. "Lily." "Lily," he said gently. "I'm Jonathan. Can you tell me exactly what you saw?" She hiccuped, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "The man with black gloves. He came in before you. He talked to the coffee lady and gave her money, and then when she made your coffee, he put something from a little bottle into it. I was watching from outside because it's warm in here, and I saw through the window, and her voice cracked. "I know what poison looks like. My mama drank water from the bad pipes and she got sick, and the doctors said there was bad stuff in it, and she didn't wake up, and I was supposed to watch her, and I didn't, and I can't let someone else. Okay, Jonathan's mind raced. Okay, Lily, you did the right thing. Sir, the security guard interjected. Should we call the police? Jonathan glanced at the spilled coffee, now seeping into the grout between marble tiles. At the barista behind the counter, her face carefully neutral. At the security cameras mounted in the corners. Yes, he said slowly, call the police, and don't let anyone leave. The manager's eyes widened. Mr. Pierce, surely you don't believe. I said don't let anyone leave. Jonathan pulled out his phone, his fingers already dialing his head of security. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear, but from the sudden, dizzying realization that his perfectly controlled world had just cracked open. If this child was telling the truth, someone had just tried to kill him. If she was lying or confused, he'd just caused a scene over spilled coffee. But those eyes, those terrified, haunted eyes. Marcus, he said when his security chief answered, I need you at Belmont Cafe immediately, and bring the tech team. I need every security camera in this building pulled and analyzed within the hour. He looked down at Lily, who had slid down the wall to sit on the floor, hugging her bottle of caps to her chest. And Marcus, bring a child psychologist and some clean clothes, size, I don't know, small. As he waited for his team to arrive, Jonathan Pierce, a man who built empires on certainty, sat down on the coffee-stained floor beside a homeless little girl and realized he didn't know anything at all. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, everything had changed. The Belmont Cafe had been transformed into a crime scene. Police tape cordoned off the entrance. Officers interviewed witnesses in hushed tones while forensic technicians collected samples of the spilled coffee, carefully scraping the liquid into evidence bags. Jonathan watched from his corner table, now protected by a barrier of security personnel, as his world tilted on its axis. Lily sat beside him, wrapped in a clean blanket someone had retrieved from a nearby hotel. A child psychologist named Dr. Elena Marsh spoke with her in soft, patient tones, occasionally offering animal crackers from a small box. The girl hadn't stopped shaking. Mr. Pierce, Marcus Webb, Jonathan's head of security, approached with a tablet in hand. His expression was grim. You need to see this. Jonathan followed Marcus to a makeshift command center set up near the kitchen. 3 screens displayed security footage from different angles, all timestamped from earlier that morning. We pulled everything from 6:00 a.m. onward, Marcus explained, queuing up the relevant clips. Watch this. The first video showed the cafe's exterior at 6:47 a.m. A black sedan pulled up. A man in an expensive coat stepped out, looked both ways, then entered the cafe. He wore leather gloves despite the mild temperature. We ran facial recognition, Marcus said. That's David Chen. He's a corporate attorney, works for Ashford Development Group. Jonathan's blood turned to ice. Victor Ashford's firm. Exactly, Marcus advanced the footage. Now watch what happens inside. The interior camera showed David Chen approaching the counter. He spoke with the barista, a young woman named Rachel Summers, and appeared to hand her something. Money? Instructions. The angle made it difficult to tell. Rachel nodded, glanced toward the door, then moved to prepare the morning's pour-overs. Here, Marcus zoomed in, enhancing the image quality. 7:14 a.m., 1 minute before you arrive. Jonathan watched himself enter the cafe in the footage, following his usual routine. Meanwhile, in the corner of the frame, David Chen stood near the pickup counter. His back was to the camera, but his right hand, the gloved one, made a swift, practiced motion over one of the coffee cups. The motion lasted less than 2 seconds. We've confirmed with the barista's prep schedule, Marcus continued. That cup was yours, custom ceramic Ethiopian blend. Prepared at your regular time. Jonathan's hands clenched into fists. Where is Rachel Summers now? Interview room 2. She's not talking yet, but she will. Marcus switched to another camera angle. But here's what sealed it for me. Watch the exterior camera at 7:10 a.m. The new footage showed a small figure huddled near the cafe's window. Lily, her pink jacket pulled tight against the morning chill, her face pressed against the glass. From her position, She had a direct line of sight to the interior counter. She saw everything. The video showed her sudden movement, standing up, pressing closer to the window, right at the moment David Chen made his move. Then she ran to the entrance, but the doorman initially blocked her way. She tried to push past him twice before finally slipping through when a group of customers exited. By then, Jonathan had already been served his coffee. She saw the tampering, Jonathan said, his voice hollow. A 6-year-old homeless girl saw it and she tried to stop it. She saved your life, Marcus corrected. The lab results won't be back for a few hours, but the preliminary field test on the coffee residue showed traces of a benzodiazepine compound. High dose, enough to incapacitate you for 12-24 hours. The implication hit Jonathan like a physical blow. The city council vote is tonight at 7:00 p.m. Exactly. You miss that vote, the Riverside project gets delayed by months, maybe killed entirely, depending on how the opposition rallies. Marcus paused. Victor Ashford has been trying to acquire the Riverside property for 3 years. If your development falls through, he's positioned to swoop in with a competing bid. Jonathan's mind raced through the connections. Victor Ashford, his most ruthless competitor, a man who'd built his fortune on exploiting legal loopholes and crushing anyone who stood in his way. They'd clashed dozens of times over zoning regulations, permits, and city contracts. But poisoning, attempted murder. We need to bring this to the police, Jonathan said. Already done. Detective Sarah Chen is lead investigator, no relation to David Chen, ironically. She's in with Rachel Summers now. As if on cue, a woman in a dark blazer approached. Detective Chen was in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Pierce, I need your statement. Jonathan spent the next 40 minutes recounting every detail. His routine, the interruption, Lily's warning, the spilled coffee. Detective Chen listened without interruption, taking meticulous notes. The girl, she said finally. Lily, do you know her full name, any family? Dr. Marsh is still working on that, Jonathan replied. She's traumatized. Keeps talking about her mother dying from contaminated water. I don't think she has anyone. Detective Chen's expression softened slightly. We'll need to involve child services. No, the word came out harder than Jonathan intended. He softened his tone. I mean, can we hold off on that? Just until we know she's safe. If Victor Ashford is behind this and Lily can identify his attorney. She's a material witness, the detective agreed. We'll arrange protective custody. But Mr. Pierce, you need to understand, if the lab confirms poison and if we can tie this to Ashford development, this becomes a conspiracy to commit murder. This isn't corporate espionage. This is serious prison time. Good, Jonathan said flatly. Over the next 3 hours, the investigation unfolded with devastating precision. Rachel Summers, the barista, broke under questioning. She confessed that David Chen had approached her a week earlier, offering $50,000 to add a supplement to Jonathan's coffee on the morning of December 15th. She claimed she didn't know it was poison, thought it was a sedative, something to make him miss an important meeting. The police weren't buying it. David Chen was arrested at his office at 11:30 a.m. His phone records showed multiple calls to Victor Ashford in the days leading up to the poisoning. Text messages discussed the morning protocol and ensuring the interruption of schedule. By 2:00 p.m., Victor Ashford himself was in custody. Jonathan watched the news coverage from his office, Lily asleep on his leather couch, Dr. Marsh sitting quietly in the corner. The media had exploded with the story. Billionaire developer target of assassination plot. Homeless girl saves real estate mogul. Ashford arrested in poisoning scheme. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members, attorneys, city council representatives, journalists. He ignored them all. Instead, he looked at Lily, this tiny girl who'd lost her mother, who lived on the streets, who collected bottle caps in a plastic bottle because maybe that's all she had to hold on to. She'd saved his life. A man she didn't know. A man who represented everything she'd never have. Why? Dr. Marsh noticed his gaze. She told me about her mother, the psychologist said softly. Emma Reeves, died 8 months ago from lead poisoning. They were living in a condemned building in the industrial district. The water pipes were corroded. Lily watched her mother get sicker and sicker, and no one would help because they were squatting. She was alone when her mother died. For 3 days before anyone found them, she tried to get help, but Dr. Marsh's voice trailed off. She was 6 years old, Mr. Pierce. She's been on the streets ever since. Foster care tried to place her, but she kept running away, back to the spots she knew, looking for her mother, we think. Jonathan felt something crack open in his chest. And this morning, she saw someone poisoning coffee, and she saw a chance to save someone, Dr. Marsh finished. Even though saving her own mother was impossible, even though no one had saved her. The weight of it crushed Jonathan. His perfect routine, his controlled empire, his $4.2 billion development, all of it rendered meaningless by a 6-year-old girl who had nothing but chose to give everything anyway. What happens to her now? He asked. Child Services will find a foster placement, hopefully a good one, but Dr. Marsh didn't need to finish. They both knew the statistics, the overcrowded system, the temporary homes, the kids who fell through cracks. No, Jonathan said again. He stood up, his decision crystallizing with absolute clarity. I want to file for emergency guardianship. Dr. Marsh blinked. Mr. Pierce, that's a serious commitment. You'd need to. I know what I'd need to do. Start the paperwork. It could take months. Background checks, home studies, court appearances. Then we start now. Jonathan looked at the girl sleeping on his couch, her bottle of caps clutched to her chest even in sleep. She saved my life, Dr. Marsh. The least I can do is make sure she has one worth living. Outside his office window, the city glittered in the afternoon sun. 42 stories below, the riverside property stretched along the waterfront, prime real estate that would make him richer than he already was. But for the first time in his career, Jonathan Pierce wondered what the hell any of it was worth if children died alone in condemned buildings while he drank $1,000 coffee. The city council vote was in 5 hours. He picked up his phone and called his lead architect. Daniel, he said, I need you to revise the Riverside plans, increase the affordable housing units from 15% to 40%, and I want transitional housing for homeless families, full support services. Make it work. Jonathan, that will cut our profit margin by. I don't care, make it work. I'll see you at the vote. He hung up and returned to his vigil beside the couch. Lily stirred in her sleep, mumbling something that sounded like Mama. I've got you, Jonathan whispered. I promise. Outside, somewhere in the city, Victor Ashford sat in a holding cell, his empire crumbling. And in a cafe across town, workers scrubbed coffee stains from white marble, never knowing that those stains marked the exact spot where everything changed. The city council chamber buzzed with anticipation. Every seat was filled. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras ready. Protesters held signs outside, some supporting the Riverside project, others opposing it. The vote that would reshape the city's waterfront was finally here. Jonathan Pierce sat in the front row, his revised proposal in hand. Beside him, his attorney whispered last-minute strategy points. But Jonathan's mind was elsewhere, on a little girl currently staying in a secure hotel room with Dr. Marsh and 2 police officers, waiting to see if the man who'd saved her life would still have one to give when this was over. The council president called the session to order. But before Jonathan could approach the podium, Detective Sarah Chen entered through the side door and made her way directly to the district attorney, who sat in the gallery. They conferred in urgent whispers. Then the DA stood and requested an immediate recess. Your Honor, new evidence has emerged in the Ashford case that directly pertains to this hearing. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The council president gavelled for silence. Explain. The DA nodded to Detective Chen, who stepped forward with a tablet. In the past 6 hours, our investigation into Victor Ashford's conspiracy has uncovered additional charges. We've discovered a pattern of bribery, extortion, and witness tampering connected to multiple city development projects, including this one. She projected documents onto the chamber's main screen. Bank records, emails, recorded phone calls. Victor Ashford and his associates attempted to bribe 3 city council members to vote against the Riverside project, Detective Chen continued. When that failed, they escalated to the poisoning attempt on Mr. Pierce, but the conspiracy goes deeper. More documents appeared, building permits approved through kickbacks, safety inspections falsified, low-income housing projects deliberately sabotaged to force residents into Ashford-owned properties at inflated rents. We've also uncovered that Ashford Development knowingly allowed lead-contaminated water systems to remain in their lower-income properties, Detective Chen said, her voice hardening, including the building where Emma Reeves died, Lily's mother. Jonathan's heart stopped. Ashford owned that building, he heard himself ask. Through a shell company, yes. The pipes were corroded. Multiple tenants complained. Ashford's property manager ignored the reports and threatened eviction for anyone who went to the city. Emma Reeves and her daughter were squatting there after being priced out of their previous apartment, also an Ashford property where the rent had tripled in 2 years. The chamber went silent. So you're saying, the council president spoke slowly, that Victor Ashford not only tried to poison Jonathan Pierce, but his corporate negligence directly led to the death of the child who exposed the plot. That's exactly what I'm saying, Detective Chen confirmed. And there are 16 other similar cases we're investigating, families displaced, people sickened, all because Ashford cut corners to maximize profit. Jonathan felt the room tilt. Lily hadn't just saved a stranger. She'd saved the man whose company might have saved her mother if he'd been paying attention to what was happening in the margins of his own city. The irony was devastating. We have Victor Ashford, David Chen, Rachel Summers, and 4 other co-conspirators in custody, the DA announced. We're filing charges ranging from attempted murder to corporate manslaughter. Your Honor, council members, I wanted you to know the full scope of what you're dealing with before you vote on this development. The council president looked at Jonathan. Mr. Pierce, do you wish to comment? Jonathan stood slowly. He hadn't prepared for this. Hadn't prepared for the weight of culpability, not for the poisoning, but for the system that had let people like Emma Reeves and Lily fall through the cracks, while men like him and Victor Ashford played chess with the city's skyline. I've spent 20 years building this city, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. I've built hospitals, museums, luxury apartments. I've created jobs and generated tax revenue. I thought that was enough. I thought control and profit were the measures of success. He paused, looking at the revised plans in his hand. A 6-year-old girl taught me I was wrong. She had every reason to hate people like me, people who build towers while families die in condemned buildings. But when she saw someone in danger, she acted. She risked herself to save me. And in doing so, she exposed a rot in this city that I should have seen years ago. Jonathan held up the revised proposal. The Riverside project, as originally conceived, would have displaced 200 low-income families and created luxury housing for people who don't need another place to store their wealth. It would have made me very rich. It would have made Victor Ashford's competing bid look appealing by comparison. He set the old plans down and lifted the new ones. These are the revised plans. 40% affordable housing with income-restricted rents, transitional housing for homeless families with wraparound services, medical care, job training, childcare, community spaces, a waterfront park that's actually accessible to everyone, not just penthouse owners, green infrastructure, lead-free everything. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Will I make less money? Yes. Will some of you think I'm being emotional or reckless? Probably. But I've learned something these past 12 hours. Control is an illusion. We don't control cities. We share them. And if we build only for profit, only for the people who already have everything, we're not building a city. We're building a monument to our own indifference. He looked directly at the council president. Lily Reeves lost her mother because men like Victor Ashford decided that human lives were less important than quarterly earnings. I won't be that man. Not anymore. This project will succeed or fail on its merits, but it will be built for everyone, or it won't be built at all. The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone in the gallery started clapping. A single person at first, then another, then a wave of applause that built until the council president had to gavel for order. We'll take a 30-minute recess, she announced, and then we'll vote. The vote was unanimous. The Riverside project passed 12-0, with the revised plans approved in full. The chamber erupted in cheers from the affordable housing advocates who'd been protesting outside. Reporters swarmed Jonathan with questions he barely heard. All he could think about was getting back to Lily. He found her in the hotel room, building a tower out of her bottle caps while Dr. Marsh looked on with gentle encouragement. When Jonathan entered, Lily looked up with those wide, haunted eyes. "Did you win?" she asked quietly. Jonathan knelt beside her. "We won, and I need to tell you something." She set down a bottle cap and waited. "The man who tried to hurt me, he's the same man who owned the building where you and your mother lived. He's the reason the water was bad. He's the reason no one helped when your mother got sick." Lily's face crumpled. "He killed my mama." "In a way, yes, but because of you, because you were brave and you saw what he was doing, he's going to prison. He can't hurt anyone else. And all the other buildings he owns are being inspected. Families are getting help. You did that, Lily. You saved more people than just me." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "But I couldn't save Mama." "I know," Jonathan said, his own voice breaking. "I know, sweetheart, and I can't bring her back, but I can promise you something. I'm going to make sure you're safe. I'm going to build homes where the water is clean and the pipes work and families don't have to be afraid. And if you'll let me, if you'll trust me, I want you to be part of my family." Lily stared at him. "You want to keep me?" "I want to keep you," Jonathan confirmed. "It'll take time to make it official. There will be paperwork and meetings and people asking questions. But yes, Lily, I want you to have a home, a real one, with me." She launched herself into his arms, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her while she cried, for her mother, for herself, for everything she'd lost and everything she'd saved. Dr. Marsh wiped her own eyes. "I'll start the guardianship paperwork tomorrow," she whispered. That night, while Lily slept in a proper bed for the first time in months, Jonathan stood at the hotel window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Victor Ashford sat in a cell, his empire in ruins. David Chen and Rachel Summers awaited trial. The city was already moving to seize Ashford's properties and place them under ethical management. One interrupted cup of coffee had brought down an empire of cruelty. One brave little girl had changed everything. Jonathan pulled out his phone and called his architect again. "Daniel, about those transitional housing units, I want to name the first building, the Emma Reeves House, and I want Lily's input on the design. Kids know what kids need." "Jonathan, she's 6 years old. She's also the smartest person I've met this year. Make it happen." He hung up and returned to the chair beside Lily's bed, watching her sleep peacefully. Bottle caps lined up on the nightstand like tiny soldiers guarding her dreams. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tonight, for the first time in 20 years, Jonathan Pierce felt like he was building something that mattered. 3 years later, the Emma Reeves house stood 4 stories tall on the corner of what had once been condemned industrial land. Its brick facade gleamed in the morning sun, solar panels lining the roof, a community garden flourishing in the courtyard. Inside, 40 families lived in apartments with clean water, working heating, and rents tied to their income. The building's community room hosted job training, after-school programs, and weekly dinners where neighbors became family. A plaque near the entrance read, "In memory of Emma Reeves, and in honor of the daughter who made sure others wouldn't be forgotten." Jonathan Pierce stood in that courtyard now, watching Lily, 9 years old, wearing a blue dress she'd picked out herself, practice the speech she'd give at today's ceremony. The Riverside project was finally complete, and the city had organized a celebration. "You don't have to do this if you're nervous," he told her gently. Lily shook her head, her hair, now clean and carefully braided, catching the light. "I want to. Ms. Chen said it's important that people hear from someone who knows what it's like." Ms. Chen was her therapist, a woman who'd helped Lily process grief and trauma with infinite patience. 3 years of healing, 3 years of stability, 3 years of slowly learning to trust that the world wouldn't collapse again. "Okay," Jonathan said, "but I'll be right there if you need me." "I know," she smiled, a real smile, the kind that had taken months to reappear. "You're always there." They walked together to Riverside Park, where hundreds of people had gathered. The waterfront stretched before them, transformed from industrial wasteland to green space with walking trails, playgrounds, and public art installations. Beyond the park, the mixed-use development rose. Luxury condos, yes, but also affordable housing blocks, medical clinics, grocery stores with fresh produce, libraries, and childcare centers. The Riverside project had become a model. Other cities were studying it. Other developers were reluctantly admitting that maybe profit and purpose weren't mutually exclusive. Victor Ashford was serving 15 years in federal prison. David Chen had turned state's witness and received a reduced sentence. Rachel Summers, after cooperating fully with investigators, was on probation and working to rebuild her life. The Ashford development empire had been dismantled, its assets liquidated to compensate victims. But the real transformation wasn't in the buildings or the legal outcomes. It was in moments like this. Lily stepping up to the microphone, one's terrified eyes now clear and purposeful, preparing to tell her story to a crowd of strangers. "My name is Lily Reeves," she began, her voice small but steady. 3 years ago I lived on the street. I was scared all the time, I was hungry, I didn't have anyone, and I thought that's how it would always be. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. But then one morning I saw something bad happening. Someone was trying to hurt a man, this man. She gestured to Jonathan, who stood off to the side, trying not to cry. And I knew what it felt like when bad things happened and nobody helped. So I helped, even though I was scared, even though I didn't think anyone would listen. Lily paused, gathering herself. "My mama died because people didn't care about where we lived or if our water was clean. She died because we were invisible. But I learned something. Just because people don't see you doesn't mean you can't make them see. Sometimes the smallest person in the room is the one who changes everything." She looked out at the families filling the park, some from the transitional housing, some from the affordable units, some from the luxury towers. All of them sharing the same space, the same community. "This place exists because my mama should have had a place like this. Because every kid should have clean water and a safe home. Because Mr. Pierce learned that building things that last means building things that help." Jonathan couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Lily continued, her confidence building. "If you're someone who feels invisible, who thinks no one cares, I see you. Mr. Pierce sees you now. This city sees you now. And I want you to know that your voice matters. Your life matters. Don't ever think you're too small to make a difference." The applause started before she finished. It built and built until the entire park thundered with it. People stood, parents lifting children on their shoulders, elderly residents wiping their eyes, teenagers filming on their phones. Lily stepped back from the microphone and ran to Jonathan, who caught her in a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "Your mother would be so proud." "I know," Lily said. "I feel her sometimes. I think she knows." The ceremony continued with speeches from city officials, architects, and community leaders, but nothing matched the impact of Lily's words. By evening, her speech had gone viral. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded with people sharing their own stories of invisibility and survival. One small voice, amplified 1,000,000 times over. That night, after the crowds dispersed and the celebrations ended, Jonathan and Lily returned to Belmont Cafe, their tradition on the anniversary of the day they met. The cafe had new management now, a collective of local business owners committed to fair wages and community support. They sat at the same corner table beneath the chandelier. The white marble floor had been replaced years ago, but Jonathan still remembered exactly where the coffee had spilled. The barista brought their order, hot chocolate for Lily, coffee for Jonathan. No one tried to poison it this time. "Can I ask you something?" Lily said, stirring marshmallows into her cocoa. "Always. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't seen? If I'd been looking the other way, or if I'd been too scared?" Jonathan considered this. "I think about it sometimes, but I try not to live in the what-ifs. What matters is what did happen. You saw, you acted, you saved me, and in saving me, you saved yourself." "How did I save myself?" "Because I needed saving too, Lily. Not from poison, from a life that looked successful but felt empty. You taught me that paying attention is a kind of love, that the people we ignore are the ones who often see the most. That control isn't power, caring is." Lily smiled. Ms. Chen says I have a gift for noticing things. You do, and now you're using it to help people instead of just surviving. That's remarkable. They sipped their drinks in comfortable silence. Through the window, the city glittered, imperfect, chaotic, still full of inequality and struggle, but also full of possibility, full of people trying, caring, building something better. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a small wrapped box. I made you something. Jonathan opened it carefully. Inside was a ceramic mug, clearly handmade, slightly lopsided, painted with bottle caps in a spiral pattern. At the bottom, carefully written in a child's handwriting, "Trust the girl with the bottle caps." I made it in art class, Lily explained. I wanted you to have it so you remember. As if I could ever forget. Jonathan's voice was thick with emotion. Lily, you gave me everything, a purpose, a family, a reason to be better. You gave me those things too, she replied simply. And in that moment, in a cafe where chaos had once erupted, where a little girl had poured away poison and poured out love instead, Jonathan Pierce understood the fundamental truth he'd missed for 47 years. Wealth wasn't measured in buildings or bank accounts. Success wasn't about control or legacy. Everything that mattered could fit in the space between one person seeing another person's need and choosing to act. Everything that mattered was sitting across from him, swinging her legs under the table, drinking hot chocolate with marshmallows. They finished their drinks and walked out into the night together. Father and daughter, survivor and saved, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of different lives and built something new. Behind them, the cafe lights glowed warm against the December darkness. Ahead, the city waited, still broken in places, still healing, still learning that the distance between rich and poor was nothing compared to the distance between indifference and compassion. And somewhere in the spaces between buildings, in the margins where people used to disappear, families slept in homes with clean water and safe walls, dreaming dreams that might actually come true. All because one small girl refused to look away. All because one powerful man learned to see. All because of an interrupted cup of coffee on a cold December morning. Epilogue. 5 years later, on Lily's 14th birthday, Jonathan took her back to the industrial district where she'd once lived with her mother. The condemned building was gone, replaced by the Emma Reeves house and the surrounding development. But they walked to the exact spot where the old building had stood. Lily placed flowers on the ground, a ritual they performed every year. I miss her, she said quietly. I know, Jonathan replied, and that's okay. Missing her means she was real, means the love was real. Do you think she'd like what we built? I think she'd be amazed, and I think she'd be incredibly proud of you. Lily looked up at the building bearing her mother's name, at the children playing in the courtyard, at the community garden where tomatoes grew in the same soil that had once held nothing but industrial waste. I want to be an architect, she said suddenly, or a city planner. I want to design places where people like me and Mama can live, places that see us from the beginning, not just after everything goes wrong. Jonathan smiled. Then that's what you'll do, and I'll help however I can. They walked back to the car, past families greeting neighbors, past clean streets and working streetlights, past all the invisible infrastructure that made life possible and dignified. The city had changed, not everywhere, not enough, but more than it had been. And two lives, one that had been defined by control, one that had been defined by survival, had merged into something neither could have built alone. A family, a purpose, a future. All because a little girl with bottle caps in her pocket had refused to let someone die the way her mother had died. All because attention became action, and action became love. Call to action. What would you have done if you were Lily? Would you have had the courage to interrupt a billionaire's morning, knowing you might be ignored, arrested, or worse? Or would you have looked away, stayed invisible, protected yourself first? This story reminds us of something we forget too often. The people society ignores are often the ones who see the most. They notice the details we miss. They understand what it means when the powerful stop paying attention. And sometimes, if we're lucky, they care enough to save us from ourselves. If this story made you think about who you might be overlooking in your own life, if it reminded you that one small act of courage can change everything, I need you to do something right now. Smash that like button if you believe that compassion is more powerful than control. Comment Justice SCRVED if you're glad Victor Ashford faced consequences for his cruelty. Comment I see you if you want to honor the Lilies and Emmas of the world, the people fighting battles we know nothing about. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories like this. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories about justice, redemption, and the moments that transform lives. Because every time you engage with these stories, you're telling YouTube to show them to someone who needs to hear them. Maybe it's someone feeling invisible right now. Maybe it's someone with the power to make change but who hasn't found their reason yet. Maybe it's someone who just needs to remember that their voice matters, their actions matter, that they matter. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Lily's message. Share it with someone who works in housing advocacy, child services, urban planning, anyone fighting to build a world where clean water and safe homes aren't luxuries. And here's my challenge to you. This week, pay attention to someone society tells you to ignore. The homeless person on your corner, the janitor in your building, the kid who sits alone at lunch. You don't have to save their life. You just have to see them. That's where every transformation starts. Because here's the truth Lily and Jonathan learned. We don't control the world. We share it. And the moment we choose compassion over indifference, everything changes. So let me know in the comments. What's one way you're going to practice attention this week? How are you going to make someone feel seen? Like, comment, subscribe, and join our community fighting for a world where everyone matters. Not just the people with perfect morning routines and $1,000 coffee. This is more than a story, it's a movement, and it starts with you choosing to see. Let's build something better, together. Drop that like, hit that bell, and I'll see you in the next one.